Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for being with us in the second session of Research Education Insight 2021, REdI 2021. As promised, now we are going to talk about future of works in banking industry. Before we start, let us greet our distinguished guest, Miss Siti Norliza Sahar, the Head Regional Talent Acquisition CIMB, and also Ms. Sugunah Verumandy, Country Head of Human Resource of HSBC. Thank you so much for being here, Ms. Norliza and also Ms. Sugunah. How are you?
Thank you. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for having us today.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
And very young, I can say that. Okay, before we start, let me introduce first your background, a little bit of your background, right? Okay, Ms. Norliza has more than 20 years working experience in human capital, from human resources to talent development, as well as driving graduates related initiatives. Prior to joining CIMB, she was the Director of Talent with Malaysian Digital Economic Corporation, MBEC. Subhanallah, that's a great experience. Her past experience include working with Khazanah Nasional, Talent Corp, PMK, and Maxis. Wow, amazing. And also, Ms. Sugunah, she also has great working experience related to human talents, more than 20 years. Prior to joining the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corp Limited, HSBC Bank, she worked with Dairy Farm Group, Talent Corporate Malaysia Berhad, Talent Corp, GE, General Electric Company based in ASEAN countries as well as New Zealand. She also positioned General Electric in Malaysia as employer of choice, which led GE to be awarded Best Place for Work, Best HR Practices, and Best Company for Women Empowerment. Congratulations for your achievement. So, you have very, very great experience, right? Thank you for being here with us. So, Ms. Norliza, and also Ms. Sugunah, today we are going to talk about the banking industry. The working industry, meaning that how our graduates are going to expose themselves in this during pandemic, yeah. So because we are with the digital economy, online, so on like that. So maybe can we start with this little bit background about the future works in banking industry? Which one we can start? Is it Miss Liza or Miss Sugunah? Can we start with the Miss Liza first?
Okay, thanks Lisa. Thanks Sugunah. I must start with this. Actually, as I was like progressing in my career, right, in HR, Sugunah is one of the names that I really look up to. And I don't know whether you know this, Sugunah. The first time I met you, I think you were having this workshop, GE workshop at Majestic Hotel. And Johan knows this, my former boss. I was having starstruck when the first time I saw you because my God, this is the Sugunah. So I finally get to meet the Sugunah in person. So actually when he invited me, I was like, boss, what if suddenly I froze, because you know how I idolize Sugunah. So it's okay, I'm here and I'm just going to give you a big tight slap. So that was actually the history behind that. Anyway, Lisa, coming back to your question.
Yes.
I think banking industry, and I can't actually speak enough about this. I think Sugunah can also add on after this. As we speak, we keep on evolving. So I think one of the favorite question I always ask when I go to campus, when is the last time any of the students went to a branch? Because most of the transaction now don't really happen in branches. Many are using digital platform, but at the same time, especially when you're talking about the rural areas, we're talking about all the kampong and also the suburbans and all that, we still need to have branches. So the context that I wanted to put in, as much as we are going towards digitalization, there is still the need of having this face-to-face interaction. Because of that, when it comes to skill set, it's not just about tech skill set. It's also about the normal whatever that any other organization look for. The customer centric, the analytical thinking, decision making, and things like that. The communications and all that. So the digital part is a good complement for you to be successful. but that's not the only thing. So sometimes, I also wanted to impress upon the graduate, as much as you put the digital or the tech part, please do not neglect the human touch part, because as banking evolve, we still need that human part, human interaction part.
Yes.
And if they can also look up, the 21st century skill, the top 5 of 21st century skill, actually none of it are digital related. All are critical thinking, the analytics. Analytics is not digital. Like, analytics is making sense of numbers, and then how do you make decisions, and the customer centric and things like that, communication. So even as I speak, we are still evolving. Like yesterday, PM announced the PKP, so we need to
Yes.
also start coordinating things because we are nationwide. So yeah, there's not going to be like a hard and fast rule in terms of the skill set which are required by the banking industry. Yeah.
So basically, it's still related to human skill, right? The attitude of the human, not
Exactly.
really all the digitalization.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
how about you, Mr. Sugunah?
Yeah, so Liza, thank you. First of all, thank you for that very nice, kind comments. I must say that I've always admired you from a distance as well. So with that, really, I like to just emphasize how important the things that Liza has just mentioned, right? If you ask me, really, the two key things that Lisa mentioned, one is the evolving customer expectations, right? In the past, you go to the bank, but these days the bank comes to your house, to your home, right? Bank in your home, because everything you do is at your fingertip,
Online.
mobile phone, online, right? So we say instead of going to the bank comes to your home, right? So definitely in terms of the evolving customer expectation, and the second one is certainly in terms of enhanced digital penetration, right? So when you talk about enhanced digital penetration, obviously, if you look at some of the recent technology adoption in the industry, you will notice that more than 90% of some of these areas are absolutely changing the way we work in the banking industry. And many other industries as well. I think they are all not left alone, right? Like what Lisa has mentioned. I'll give a very simple example in terms of, let's talk about the soft skills first, right? Now, in terms of the soft skills, there's different industry may say a different thing, right? But again, some of the key ones that we have identified, at least in HSBC, I'll just share with you the top three, because we actually identified about 9 skill set, but in terms of top 3, I'll share with you. Number 1 is the resilience and the growth mindset, which is very important. I think whether the customer expectations or even digital penetration, what we have also realized is that the COVID, the experience that we have had, everything is accelerated 5-6 times faster. I mean, things that we expect will happen in future has already happened, and it's really, really accelerating, right? So there's a lot of changes. You see, many of the changes is something that we have never quite experienced in the past. So it really requires people to be very resilient, to try new things, to see if it works, if it doesn't, how do we navigate, how do we change? So it's all in the focus of finding solutions for people. What matters? What's our purpose, right? So in that sense, you see resilience, and that has been one of the top skills that the bank is looking at, and many other industries are looking at as well, right? And when I talk about resilience and growth mindset, a lot of learning agility that comes with it. What have you learned from this experience? How are you using it? How are you moving forward with that? The second one is what I would say is your connectivity. It's also very important. In the recent wake of this pandemic, you can see a lot of virtual collaboration has started taking place, right? And a lot of social influences becomes very critical as well. So the connectivity, so as students or working professionals, we are all experiencing lockdown, but amidst this lockdown, how are we staying in touch and being relevant, and how do we connect, right? So connectivity, finding ways to still get things done, finding ways to do new things. So connectivity is the second one. The third one that I will emphasize is the curiosity and creativity. So always having that sense of, what is this about? Is this going to work? What can I do differently? You know, that sense of curiosity and finding ways to solve a problem with your own creative mind. So if you ask me, these are the top three that the bank has identified with exactly that Lisa has mentioned. That's total intent, but I thought I'll just talk about the key ones. And of course, the digital curriculum, I think definitely these days we can't leave away with all the digital changes that's happening in our space, right? And for the bank, many, just like how, and I think the critical thing that we need to be aware is, where is the technology adaptation is happening in the industry. In the banking, for example, more than 90% of the digital adoption is happening in the space of cloud computing, encryption and cybersecurity, big data analytics, e-commerce. So these are some of the technology adaptation that's happening right now. What does that mean then for me as an individual, for me as a student? What are some of the areas that you might be interested to learn more? And I know a lot of like Howard Business School and all that, they're giving this program free, because of, pandemic. A lot of people are giving free programs. So some of this Lisa has mentioned around data analytics, cybersecurity is a very important one for banking industry. So a lot of students, you can actually get these exposures. Many are being offered online, many are free of charge as well. So what I've just wrapped up is in terms of, we need to be mindful in terms of how the market is moving, and in this case, the banking industry landscape, and what it means for us as skill set, and rightfully the soft skills that we have spoken about is very important. And then how do you skill, which is making its big way, is another area that we all need to embrace ourselves. So I'll stop there.
Okay, so basically you talk about the skills required, right, for the banking industry. So basically I captured some: resilient and growth mindset, number one, connectivity, and second one, and third one, creativity and curiosity, and also digital curriculum, right? So basically these all are the basic, the meaning that the add-on value, right, for our graduates in order to be cope with the banking industry right now, right? Okay, so Miss Liza, maybe you have another set of skills you like to highlight.
Okay, what I want to emphasize actually, the skill that was actually that I mentioned earlier, and also what Sugunah mentioned, is not just applicable for the graduates, even for those who are already inside the banking industry.
Yes.
Yeah, because as we evolve, we need to continuously to reskill and also upskill ourselves so we become more relevant. So on top of the technical skills and all that, the human skills, but what's more important, I think I like the part where Sugunah mentioned about the being curious.
Yeah.
About always about so eager about solving problems, because I think both myself and Sugunah, I don't know about you, Sugunah, but when I entered the banking industry, it was quite overwhelming for me, especially joining an organization like CIMB, because it's so huge. It's like we are present in 16 countries, so it was quite a big thing. It can be quite overwhelming at times. So how fast are you able to fail and then pick yourself up and then try new things and try to solve problems within the so-called quote unquote limitations? So there's going to be a lot, because it is a finance industry, financial institution. So it is a financial institution industry. It's bounded by regulations, and it's not just unique to Malaysia. It's all over the world. But that should not be a showstopper to me. That to me, again, picking up on the resilient part, that should be like a challenge. How do you still get things done without crossing the boundaries of governance and compliance? So there are reasons why we have rules, but that should not also be like giving example. Oh, kita tak boleh buat ni because the law say that we can't do this and all that. But there are always a lot of other areas that we can actually improve on, particularly when it comes to the human interaction. So I think if I can just like give an example, my parents, right?
Please.
They would always prefer speaking to human rather than leaving messages to, like voicemails or robots and all that. And obviously, prefer to have this interaction
Yes.
on at branches as opposed to calling or chatbots is a big no-no, obviously. So how do we also cater for this kind of, these are also our customers, so we can't actually start having this fixation about everything has to go digital and all that, and we neglect the other part of it. So particularly for the graduate, and the reason why I said this, because I actually mentored few of the final year projects. Well and good that we really want to go into digitization, but we must also not neglect, the human component, because there's still a base of customers. And similar to HSBC, for CIMB, it's always about the customer. It's about the people that we are serving. And I think Sugunah, because Sugunah also came from the same organization I was in, Talent Corp. So customer is always, in the heart of our whatever things that we do. So while we have technology to complement, but we must always be sensitive towards the needs of our customer. So I think I'm very much aligned to what Sugunah has shared earlier.
Okay, thank you. So basically, I can see that there is economic term. I explain about this curiosity and problem solving, which means that the banking is always looking for the maximized output within the minimum output, right? Minimum input, right? So basically, looking at this digitalization, what about financial technology? So I can see that our Bank Negara also moving towards the financial technology, Bitcoin, something like that. So anything, what else the preparation need by our graduates in order to enter this kind of banking industry? So maybe we can start with the Miss Sugunah.
Sure, certainly. I think that's a very good question, Isa, because we broadly spoke about the changing market landscape and what are the skill set needed. I think in terms of preparation, it was very interesting that just a couple of, at least a month or two ago, I was in another talk and one of the speakers were one of the top recruiters that I know. And his job is just going for interviews, right, and bringing candidates to his company, and he covers the whole of Asia, including Africa. And he was asked that question: what are some of the preparations we need to have in order to get a role, right? And his answer was very, very simple, and I'm going to emphasize the same. It was prepare, prepare, prepare. That was his answer, right? So what do we mean by prepare, prepare, prepare? And I'll keep it, yeah. So I'll keep it very simple as well. Prepare three things, right? Number one, know yourself. Number two, know your potential employer. Number three, know how you want to get there, right? So, and of course, Lisa can jump in as well. So very simplistically, know yourself. I think what's important is individuals to understand what's their desires, aspirations, and interests, right? What's their passion? Because once you know that, it'll be much more easier for you to ledge and make a difference in the interviews and conversations, right? Know what are your development areas as well, because your recruiters will definitely ask that question, because they are supposed to impact and what are the areas you need help. So development is also very important, right? Now, having said that, what I've also seen is that some individuals, probably they're not too sure what space they want to enter. And I noticed that a lot with, even my daughter occasionally will come back and say, I want to do that. Ma, now I think I want to do this, Ma, because students these days are given so many choices and options that sometimes it can be challenging for them to make a decision, right? And in that case, I'll always say, go try different things and find the one that you like most. There's really no harm. Guys, Lisa and my background was something else. I went into comms, and then from comms, I moved into HR, and then from HR, I went into industry partnership. So there's really no hard and fast rule. If you do this, you do that forever, right? So finding your space, navigating, so the flexibility and the agility in terms of trying different things, it's fine. It's not an issue at all, right? The second one is knowing the employer. So for you to be prepared. So if you are very interested in going into a banking industry, for that matter, then you need to prepare yourself knowing what does banking industry means, right? Who are the stakeholders you work with? What are the key issues? What are the customers' needs, so that will differentiate you better than any other candidates that might go for that interview, right? Because those are some of the things we look at. If there are 5 candidates, then we will see who has an edge over the other, right? The third one is, of course, in terms of how do you get there. And some of the useful thing that I've seen is that the ability for you to make yourself, your presence visible is important. So I would say that people typically don't just wait for advertisement. They definitely put their profiles on the professional networks like LinkedIn or whatever. People do put it in, right? But at the same time, I think what's important is make yourself available to the individuals that make this decision in hiring, right? Opportunity is this. For example, if you're on some voluntary programs, you're on some social network group, I think you have an opportunity. If you put up your hands, you do things, it's not just brings you the skills. Because a lot of things that, I know some of the time students worry about, hey, you know what, if I'm not working, I don't have the experience. Well, there's many other things that you could do and get the experience, which then will be a very good skill set transfer when you get into the industry. So for example, if you're involved in a voluntary program, right? I met a wonderful lady by the name of Aisha, a graduate, and she wasn't able to get into a job. And all she did was she was helping people to prepare resumes, to prepare other students to get connections into the employers market, right? And that itself was a skill set building for her, right? And for me, it's like if there's any opportunity, Aisha would be one of the person I'll be considering because she was already doing, exposing herself in the little work that she's doing, right? So I feel those are some of the things that's very important in how do you get there. Build that visibility, get involved, get engaged, do what you can. And all that experiences matters when you go for an interview or get into a job eventually. So I will just stop there. And I'm sure Liza has a lot of great examples to share as well.
Okay, Miss Liza, you can continue the preparation, so on.
I don't know. I don't know about you, Sugunah, but I hardly meet anyone, at least people within my age, that studied HR and do HR. So I think let's start with that. I in accounting. No, I'm actually a education by education. I'm an accountant. I started my work as an auditor. I did that for 3 months and I hated it. So then I did the next so-called best thing. I became a call center agent. So I was actually a call center agent for a good 4 years. So 2 years is really like about answering calls. Another 2 years is actually doing collection for corporate accounts. So to me, I think coming back to the one of the points that Sugunah made, apart from prepare, we also not we should not also sell ourselves short. We shouldn't actually always telling ourselves that just because we don't have certain so-called perceived banking exposure means that we don't deserve to be working in the banking industry. So one good example that I want to give as far as CIMB is concerned, an associate program called the Complete Banker. As much as it's called the Complete Banker, we hire graduates from all disciplines. So we even had a graduate who joined us last 2 cohort, and she graduated with degree in psychology. And psychology students, graduates, they actually made a good, I'm not sure whether you guys are aware, they really make a good UI UX designer. because UI UX is not just about the technology part, the coding, the hard coding part or the programming part. It's also about getting into human mindset. When you go to the online platform, when you click this, you click that, where do you go next? Where do you go next? So how many clicks until people get so frustrated? So how many clicks, that can actually, those kind of things. So
Mhm.
because of that, we really opened up ourselves to make sure that we don't, as an employer, we don't also becoming so rigid that we just want people with certain DNA or certain background or certain skill set, because that will also work against us as far as particularly about diversity is concerned. And diversity is not just about gender. Diversity is also about the way we think, the background and things like that. So as much as you prepare, but do not discount yourself, just because I studied this, I must be this. I think exactly what Sugunah mentioned. There's no such thing as a process flow. Then you have a diamond box. Yes, no, you go there, you go there. So always explore. And I know this may not be a good timing when we speak about internship, but to me, internship is very important. And internship is not just about doing it for the sake of graduating. When I was still a student, I did my so-called internship or maybe part-time work at every chance I had. So you name it lah. I pernah jaga fitting room in Metro Jaya. I've become call center agent for American Express. I've worked in McDonald's. So but all these bits and pieces of experience will then make you a better candidate, because the recruiters, we don't ask the typical question like how interviews were done before. We don't ask, at least I don't, and I will kill my recruiters if they do. I don't ask, how do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Usually we ask more towards a scenario based, especially for banking. It's about, the integrity part. What if you found out this customer has this and all that? So what are you going to do? So it's not about getting the right or wrong answer. It's about understanding your thought process, your logic. What's the logical, the reasoning behind the answer that you give. And those kind of things, as much as you learn things in university, but these kind of things happens when you experience stuff. And experience is not just about formal experience. You always have a choice to really chart your way and do your own experience gathering. So I think picking up a point that Suguna mentioned, in this current environment, there's a lot of online platform. I told my team, about a month ago, I started learning Mandarin.
Oh,
One of my biggest regret actually growing up, because I didn't learn Chinese, because I think that's quite a very, it's a very useful skill. So it's always about us. What do we want to do? And apart from that, I think this is again something that I do out of self-interest. In September, I started, walking and running. So this morning I was like bragging to, we have this WhatsApp group that we create just to motivate each other in terms of, our exercising and all that. So my speed has improved. So we put there. So there's a lot of things that you can do. So don't really limit ourselves just because of the current situation. We become a victim of our own situation. But these are the kind of resilience, and back to resilience, that we look for, when at least when for CIMB, when we hire new talent for our workforce. Yeah.
Okay. Something ponder me. Um, while you are searching for the talent during your experience, is it value added for the students who have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, something like that? Is it necessary for them to build their self, branding their image? Is it? What do you think?
Well, that's a very tough question. Suguna, you take that.
okay. All right, great. So now I think today we are in a world where we can't avoid social media, lah, put it that way. Can I mean it's already a natural part of our day. In the past, when we wake up in the morning, you say thank you day, thank you God for a wonderful day, and then you walk to your bathroom, you brush your teeth, you get ready, and then you start your work. But these days you wake up and you say, thank you, God, for the day. And the next thing you take your phone and you look at your Facebook and Instagram, right?
Yes.
Before even brushing your teeth. So I think it's already a natural part of our lives, can social media. And obviously, there's a lot of debate around this, So I am one person that I'll constantly look at whatever tools there are. I mean, my belief is there's good and there are things that can be otherwise. But the best thing is always take what's good out of it, right? And focusing on that, I think the advantages that I will talk about of social media is obviously if you ask me what are the top two things, number one is obviously keep being aware of things that's happening, not just within your surrounding, but outside your surrounding as well, right? What's happening? Because a lot of people, sometimes when they look for a job, they want to go and explore outside Malaysia, right? And then you need to be aware what are some of the posting that's outside Malaysia, right? And social media is a great platform to do that. So that's one, being aware. And number two is, of course, it's a tool for you to make yourself visible. Some of the great things that you do, I've come across many individuals that, when I interview or meet them, I realize that I've seen them in some space of social media and some great stuff that they do. Right. So they obviously, those individuals have leveraged the social media to their advantage and to do the right things, right? That matters a lot to me. Ethics and integrity is very important in any organization. So yes, the answer is yes. I think it's part of a natural life for us. There's a lot of opportunity for you to leverage it in the right way. Yeah. So hope that kind of answers the question.
Obviously, because I think it's good, right? Because the itself become leverage for the individual to branding themselves, and then it's a for short interview. Then the interview, the person in us maybe does know right away, right? So how about you, Miss Liza? Anything to add on about this matter?
Okay, I think it's about being authentic, being true to yourself, being real, to show you as a person, not trying to like just going along with the trend. And what I really love is the creativity part. Especially when you look at TikTok, there's a lot of life hacks kind of tips, especially I think, and we Malaysians, we tend to be very creative, especially during PKP. I think there's a lot of things that you can actually see on social media. How do we, simplify our life? How do we do things better? So I think those are the kind of things that we really value. At least I really value, because that's how we can see the creative part of you. But another thing that I would also like to emphasize, I do hope that most of the graduates out there, for them to really have their own LinkedIn account. Because as much as you do research on us as employer, we would also do research on you. And and research is not so much about us trying to find fault or trying to see why you don't fit in. It's more on trying to understand your interests, the kind of articles that you read, the kind of conversation that you started. So at least we can see how do you align and blend well with the culture of the organization. And if for those who actually have yet to explore LinkedIn, I think it's a very powerful tool, whereby you can even get coaching from the subject matter expert directly. You can actually ask, there's one feature on LinkedIn that you can actually ask for someone to become your coach, because there's going to be that list of people who volunteer to become a coach. So if it's being used wisely, be it whether it's Instagram, Facebook. I know, when we mentioned Facebook, many people thought, alamak, that one is only for old people, kan? The young people don't go to Facebook anymore. But whichever social media that you use, I think it's a reflection of your authenticity. It's also a reflection of your, your how genuine you are as a person. And the third one, I think is very important, is also a reflection of your maturity, especially Twitter. you can really see the level of maturity of people. To just to sum up, I think regardless if there's going to be like new social media cropping up, because now I think there's more and more coming up, but how you use it is actually a representative of the maturity level that you are as a person. Yeah.
Okay, this is really good, quick view about the social media in terms of being imagining ourselves, right? So another question regarding the preparation in banking industry, there are sometimes during the interview you can see that candidate is very good in terms of speaking, presenting themselves, but then once they enter the workforce, they become another person. They don't know how to communicate with the boss. The human interaction is something, I don't know, something so and so. So do you have any suggestion or advice for students, or meaning that this is related interpersonal skill, right? So what do you think about this one? Any advice? And
Anyone in particular? Or I mean, I can jump in.
Yeah. Miss Sugunah, please.
Okay. I'll just kick it off, and then Liza can add in as well. Now, my view of interviews is that, look, it's a platform for us to know the candidate better, and for the candidate to know us better as well, right, as employers. So it's two ways, right? Because the candidate, as much as employers have a right to assess the candidate for the best fit candidate, the candidate also has a right to also assess whether is this the right employer for us, right? So all that happens during the interviews. Many companies also do reference check about the individuals, especially if the jobs has very high risk in terms of impact, then they just don't do interviews, right? They also do background check of the individuals. In some cases, depending on the needs of the role, some even do simple ability tests. Some may even do psychometric, whatever, profiling to look at what are their preferences and their dislikes and stuffs like that. So different methods can be used in order to find the right fit, right? Now, having said that, all this probably takes 60-70% of your closest fit, right? At the end of the day, you can only tell surely if this is the right candidate when the person gets into the job, right? And even then, when you get into a job, it's not a guarantee that that's the best person, because things change, market outlook change. Individuals have different phases of their life that they go through. They start as a student, then maybe they get married and they have a family, and then later on they want to do different things. So the life cycle of an individual changes as well, right? So for me, as an employer, I'm always very mindful that yes, during interview we have done all what we need. But at the end of the day, when we put the person in a job, as an employer, I have an obligation to make sure that the individual is successful. So development, upskilling, we continue. That's why the onboarding program is very important, right? To make sure that they eventually fit in and able to be successful. And of course, that doesn't stop there. Like I said, individual life cycle changes, and then new development, new upskilling is required as well. Now, it also is the accountability of the individual to find themselves every sweet spot that they can to make them successful in the role. So that's also the accountability of the individual then to leverage whatever they can in order to grow in the position. So I hope that kind of gives an answer that, at the end of the day, we make the best fit decision. The best match doesn't mean it's 120%, this is it, it's going to change the world and because we still have to put the person in the job, get them the right training and development, and help them to be successful. I think that's Liza, anything you like to add on, Liza?
I think just for the benefits of particularly for graduates out there, whenever we do this assessment and all that, it's not so much about us trying to eliminate or trying to minimize the pipeline, because there's no even I don't think there's any employer who would want to set any talent out for failure, because we want to make sure that you will also succeed with the organization. So because of that, all this kind of the kind of assessments or the kind of the profiling and things to make sure that you fit in, you highly likely is going to fit in well. But there's no like a magical or like a like 100% fit, just like what Sugunah mentioned. We can only know the moment the person is in the job. And why I said that, because there's a lot of external factor, if I can put it that way, that may influence the success of a person in an organization. As much as that person may be highly competent, maybe technically skilled and all that, but there are other factors, and just like what Suguna rightly pointed out, it's also it depends on the phases of life that you are going through at the moment. Maybe in the previous organization, you are in a different kind of life, and maybe now you're, or maybe now you are single. Kadang-kadang we are being human, baru break off dengan boyfriend ke, so because of that can actually influence the way you work and things like that. At the same time, also the chemistry of with people that you're working with. It's not just about chemistry with the boss, it's also chemistry with the team that you're working with. How fast can you adapt with them, and how fast can they also adapt with you? So to me, there's no hard and fast rule again, and also there's no like a playbook. Once you, like, if there's a 10 things inside the checklist, one is check you, or this is the person, we can never go wrong. I have not seen, if Suguna, if you know any of the recruiters can actually point me to that direction, I would love, because then at least it will help me with my retention.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope we are the ones lah. They found us the right fit.
Yeah. So
Because Lisa and I just joined the banking industry, right? I mean, yeah, I'm just 6 months old with the banking industry. I came from very, very different background. I was with a very diversified, so General Electric, very diversified. I've been with pharmaceutical, I've been with telecommunication. I did a little bit of work with talent corp, like Lisa and I, right? So we completely come from a very different industry. Banking is the first time. I'm just 6 months old, and people were pretty surprised, right? They were like, "Oh my God, Suguna, with COVID and all, you still dapat kerja, and you berani pula tu pergi, and bukan banking pula tu kan." So I said it's all about. So once you have your transferable skills, you don't have to really worry that it's banking or accounting industry or whatever, because a lot of the skill set. That's why when Visa also started, we are banging a lot on your soft skill set that's transferable. Then you can be in any industry and be successful and try different things as well. Because I realized a lot of people in oil and gas at one time, they were so fascinated about oil and gas. And of course, when times hit, right, many of them were ready to go and try different industry as well. And vice versa, when oil and gas picks up, many people wanted to come back, right? So that's the thing that matters. And I think one other important information that I wanted to share, while Lisa and I, we are representing employers, right? And in particular now in the banking industry, and all of us are in search of talent every time, right? I must say that a lot of people these days want to do side hustles. They want to become entrepreneurs as well, right?
Yeah.
And that's a space that I think always keep it open, because I've seen a lot of millennials and even working adults, like my own friends, have found a lot of passion in becoming entrepreneurs. And I'm sure for those who are listening in today, you've got many friends that have started small micro businesses, and many are also doing side hustle. They may be working in the morning, and the evening they are running some baking shops, or they are doing some online businesses. So that's another space that I would encourage. What's really your purpose and passion? My daughter is every day tell me, "Amma, I don't want to work. I just want to do my own business." I say, "Fine, go figure out what business you want to do, right? So I just want you all to know that that's another space. Side hustles, entrepreneurship is making a lot of big way. And I think if you go to Magic and places like that, they are doing a lot of programs that you can take advantage of as well, right? So it is just an add-on, because I know today's topic was about getting employed, but I want you to be aware, guys, you guys have a lot of options to consider. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. So before that, ladies and gentlemen, you can insert your comments and any question below the video. So after this, after we talk and discuss, and then we can open the Q&A quickly after this. So the third question I would like to ask to our panelists, there are chances of, is it any chances of non-banking students to be hired by in the banking industry? For example, the engineering students, or other than that, any of the non-banking students. So maybe can Miss Liza start with this?
Do you know that engineering student make a very good investment banker?
Wow.
Yeah, and the reason why that's so, because engineering student, they are very into taking risk. And when you're into investment banking, you just have to be brave to take calculated risks, yeah. And that's what engineering students are very good at, making calculated risks. Accountants like me, we are really bad investment bankers because we are very risk adverse. You know, so to answer your question, for CIMB, we hire people regardless the discipline. So we wouldn't actually decline you just because you don't graduate with a degree or diploma in banking or accounting or finance. That is just a mere perception. So even another signature program that we have, the Complete Banker Digital, as much as it's called the Complete Banker Digital, not necessarily you must have like computer science or IT related degree for you to be in that program. We even had one person who graduated with a degree in accounting because he managed to pass all the assessment. What's important is, can you pass assessment for us to know your digital competency level? And of course, with the current situation, many of these competency can actually be self-taught. As much as you learn degree, whatever degree that you learn, but if you may on the side learn coding or programming yourself. When I joined MDEC, just to make sure that I do my job well, because you can't be going out and preaching to people, or coding is important, programming is important, but you also don't know how to do, right? So the first thing that I did was actually I learned to code, and I learned Python, one of the programming language. So at least when I go and see parents, right, to influence them to make sure that they send their kids for programming language or coding classes, at least I can tell them, makcik like me also can do it. I'm sure your kids can actually do it lah. So at least I can see that fiction. So coming back to my early point, do not sell yourself short. Do not discount opportunities just because you perceive, whatever that you have, that's the only thing that you can actually offer. If you look at it in a very broader mindset, it's more, the kind of value that you can actually bring to the table, and that can actually be picked up based on the bits and pieces of experience that you carry along the way. Yeah. So very long answer to a short question. I can just say yes, we do hire, but then tak biasa kan, Nisa?
Yeah.
Sorry sikit lah.
Dia bagi some cases, something like that.
Yeah.
So, Sugunah, any special cases you want to add on?
Yeah, I'd certainly like to add that on. I think, okay, let me break it into three things. One is, yes, we hire all kind of background. We have got literature, we got psychology, we got, whatever, like engineers, we've got accountants. And I think it's very important, right? Employers are realizing that, the diverse background is so important in order for you to have creative minds that give different thought thinking processes. Because how an engineer thinks, how an accountant thinks, how a psychologist thinks can be very different, right? And when you bring all these minds together, that's where innovation starts. That's where creativity starts. That's where changes starts. And that's where you're able to make a lasting and meaningful change for the bank, which means that for the customers and for the people that we hire, right? Even internally, employees matters a lot to us as much as customers, right? So a lot of employers have started realizing that, hey, you know what? In the past, I'm so gung ho, so focused about kalau I banking to banking lah, kalau I telecom je lah I hire. But it's no more like that. People are opening up because they see the value of diverse thinking coming in. All different background matters, right? So that's one big change that we see and we notice that it's bringing a lot of impact to the return on equity as well. So diverse background is very important. Number two is, if you really look at it, it's very interesting. If you look at Future of Jobs Report 2020 by World Economic Forum, it'd be very interesting when you look at the report, right? By 2025, it is anticipated that more than 97 million new roles will emerge. So we are all going through a transition. So for students, don't feel so. Yes, it's concerning moments. I must say that, right? Because a lot of you are looking for jobs and all that. Now, at the same time, you equally have great footing with people like me and Lisa, who's been working for 20 years. But the new jobs that's coming are equally as alien to us. And in some cases, we don't even know what the jobs are going to be because it's keep changing, right? So I think the one of the things that Lisa and I want to leave behind, with many of you have dialed in today, is that we are all equal in that sense in many ways, because we are experiencing new roles coming in and we are all finding out what it is and preparing ourselves for it. And so can you, right? So that's the second point. Watch out for new emerging roles and find your space in that, your sweet spot in that. And going back to the question, engineers, right? Can we hire engineers? Yes, I think a lot of industries are definitely looking for engineers. So some of the new roles that's coming up, it's not banking specific, like data analytics, data science, digital marketing, strategy specialists, artificial intelligence and machine learning specialists, fintech engineers. These are some where almost all industry needs that, right? So yes, there's an ask for an engineers. In fact, you guys are becoming more valuable these days, right? And those with other background, the social sciences background is very important, because you can see, even when pandemic happened, right? One of the biggest thing that people were looking for was, how do we help our people to stay safe? And how do you help them manage anxieties and things like that people are going through? And this is where a lot of psychologists came in, right? To play that space. A lot of organizations started going into well-being because they realized a lot of people were being impacted, right? So again, the soft skills are very important as well. Yeah. So long answer again, just like Lisa, but it's to show that, everything matters and everyone can make a difference, regardless whatever your background is.
There is question from our audience. She or he asks, is it possible for PhD graduates to be hired by bank? If possible, what is the position suitable? What are the positions suitable for PhD students or master students?
Okay, actually for CIMB, we hire people not necessarily because your PhD master degree. It doesn't really. It's not like a checklist that you must have for this grade or for this particular position. You need to have PhD or. So we look at it from a two perspective and we merge it. One would be your academic background, but typically that is more towards the fresh entry. And then for the more experienced hire, is more on the kind of experience that you have. So to answer this question, yes, we do hire. If you're talking about the position suitable, we need to look at it from a talent perspective. So what kind of PhD that you have, and also what kind of experience that you also have along the way, before we can see how you can actually fit into the roles that we have. Yeah.
Yeah, and to add to that, I know certain industries they still go for PhDs, right? Like academic, definitely. Consulting, they always welcome PhD students because they need the experts of the world in order to help their customers, right? So that's very welcome. Now, in the banking industry, I see some sweet spots. For example, um, for Islamic banking, kan? So we have Islamic banking. We take pride of our Islamic banking in HSBC. There's a lot of passion in that space, you know, and I see that's an area where if the PhD, if you're focused on Islamic banking or your sukuks and your sharias and all that, right? It can be a sweet spot that you play as well in the banking industry, because that's an area, it's a niche area, and we want to grow talent in that area as well. Currently, we are also having experts around the world to come and help us in this space, and it's a place that we always welcome many of you to come and contribute in Islamic banking. That's a very niche, sweet spot, something that Malaysia wants to grow further and make our mark around the world as well. Great spot to be.
So another question I asked it, is there any soft skills training provided by the banks? That's the question. Any soft skills provided once they enter the bank?
After entering the bank or before the bank?
Sorry, Sugunah?
Is it after entering the bank or even now before entering the bank?
They just say, is there any soft skills training provided by the bank? What do you think? Do they need to have their soft skills upbringing before they enter the banks, or the bank itself can provide soft skills after that?
I think for CIMB, it's a combination of both. Good if you have, and I think soft skill again. To all the graduates out there, soft skill is not just about reading some PowerPoint charts, or reading books. Soft skill is about how you practice your communication. How do you, really train yourself to think and make, decisions, and how do you be critical about it and things like that. But for CIMB, ongoing, we continuously develop our people in soft skill. In fact, in 2018, we started this thing called 3D Academy. As much as it's called 3D Academy, many people thought it's just focusing on digital. So 3D stands for digital data, and I keep on forgetting the other D. So the 3D Academy is actually helping us to develop our team CIMB, so that we can actually prepare them for the future workforce. And there's also elements of the soft skill part. So the what's important here is for us to continuously having this kind of learning mindset. And last year we introduced this thing called gametize. Gametize is also another way whereby we teach or we develop our people using a very interactive platform. So part of the things that we actually do under gametize, 3 of the modules are actually focusing on soft skill. So how do you interact with your customer, in terms of your customer experience? We always do things based on scenario kind of thing. If this happened to you, what do you do, and things like that. And also how do you in a way like say no to your peers or to your colleagues in a very tactful manner, and things like that. So this is something that is ongoing. So it's not just focusing on graduates who's going to enter workforce. It's also for the current employees, so at least we become more relevant, particularly in managing our customer. And at the same time, I think for graduates purposes, just to make sure that don't think about soft skill as something that you learn in a classroom or something that you learn from PowerPoint slides or book. It's something that you practice on daily basis. Yeah.
That's a great point. I put my 100% bet on that. It's not about reading, just about reading and picking it up. A lot of companies have this, some call 70-20-10, some call it 80-20. 80% of your development comes through the work that you do, right? And 20% can be the formal training, like you go for classroom training or you read your materials or whatever, right? So that's very important. So I totally agree with Lisa. Just to add to that question, does the bank provide? Now, I want to emphasize that, of course, yes, we do. I mean, I'll start with that. Yes, we do. We provide a lot of training. In HSBC, we have what we call as the HSBC University, where we have both the soft skill training and the technical training that's given to the employee, and they learn in their own space as well. So they get to choose what training you want. You go and sign up, take your time to develop, and there's multiple programs that's made available. Now, having said that, what about for those who just intend to come in, right? Now, again, going back to Lisa's point, the soft skills trainings comes in many ways. So I'll give a very simple example. My youngest daughter into wrestling. And what I observe when I speak to the Malaysian wrestling team, they're part of the APEC wrestling now. When I meet this bunch of young kids, they're all like 18 years old, 17 years old, 21, 28, and then a few slightly older. But I would say that they are all young kids, right, in that sense. And they always talk about, okay, when we are going for this next wrestling event, what are the stunts we do? What are the moves we do? And a lot of their training is about, the coach will never tell you sometimes do this. He will just say, get into the ring and figure out what you want to do, right? And then I see my daughter, then she'll come back and she'll start getting stressed. Oh, Ma, I don't know what to do. You know, they're telling me to do it on the spot. There's no scripts or whatever, you know, and it can be some very extreme stunts that can hurt you, right? And my daughter have had concussion, she has had back injury, whatever not. But what I realize is that when they are put on the spot to do what you need to do in the ring, the soft skill they are learning is agility in your mindset. That means you need to think on your feet, right? And how do you do that? You're on that spot, you need to make a decision. And then your teamwork, how do you create that movements with your team? How do you plan? The coach is just going to say, go figure this out. These are your audience, right? So a lot of this is on the job, you know, so I'm taking that example just to share with you. A lot of this is on the job. So students, when you go for your interview, if they ask you a question, right, how do you, do this, right? And you can take your own personal experiences and say, this is how I learn teamwork. This is how I learn to think on the feet, because I'm put in a ring and I'm told to make a decision, right? So this is where your on-the-job development comes in, right? And you bring those conversations into your interviews or when you meet your potential employer. I think that's one space that can be very, very useful for you guys, you know, when you present yourself to potential employees for the students. So that's just an add-on.
I think we finish our questions, the basic questions, right? So suddenly I jump to the question and answer, and there is another question that, while working in banks, is there study leave provided for me to further my study? Maybe Ms. Sugunah can start with?
Yes, sure, certainly. And I know Lisa has great stories. You know, they've done some wonderful job in that space as well. And yes, for HSBC, we do have what we call as sabbatical leave. We have got leave payable, whether they want to go for studies, you know, sometimes people want to take a month off because they want to pursue other interests. So yes, we do make provision for that. And I notice a lot of companies are beginning to do that as well. I've started saying companies that's giving unpaid leave. So, you know, some individuals, they just want to take a career break. They want to explore different things in life. In the past, they say they want to travel around the world 3 months. You know, I've had great case in Talent Corp. One of my team member, I just baru masuk kerja, and she was like, you know, boss, I want to take 3 months off. I want to travel around the world. And I was like, wow, you know. So I said, yeah, do what matters, right? And but these days you cannot travel around the world because of MCO. So, but many people want to do that. They want to take unpaid to rethink of their purpose in life. Some are taking career break because they want to get into entrepreneurship. Like I said, a lot of people want to get into their own businesses. So yes, a lot of companies are beginning to realize that in pursuit of individual interests and to support them at the different career phases and their lives, uh, these are made available. Also in HSBC, for the right reasons, we make support for those needs as well. I know CIMB has great stories on that. Lisa, over to you.
Yeah, so we do have that, and I think that's quite a common thing now in many organizations, including CIMB. At the same time, also we offer scholarships to our employees to further their studies while working and while taking time off. And we also have this thing what we call I think Sugunah was actually alluding to that, what we call the staff rejuvenation program. So SRP as you may call it, but I think Nisa you are too young. Mesti you ni apa generasi PT3 ke, generasi PMR ke?
PMR lagi SPM.
PMR. I last batch SRP. So don't
Sama.
start, so don't start counting backwards how old I am. So but this at this point SRP stands for Staff Regeneration Program, whereby you can actually take time off for you to do things which interest you. So there were requests because they wanted to take care of their family members who are not well. There are also requests. I think there was one request that this person wanted to actually do some charity work in India, more leading towards education. I think I'm not sure whether you have heard about Teach for All. So there were also requests for them, for some to actually go back to their hometown in a very rural area in Sarawak, for them to actually focus on doing community building. There are also requests for them to actually take a career break so that they can focus on their family. So that is actually the purpose of staff rejuvenation program, not just about to me, for you to enrich yourself, it's not just about going back to academics or study. There are also other ways for you to really have this enriching experience. Yeah, and I'm so glad that Sugunah mentioned about one of your staff and I know who, but I'm not going to mention name.
Our common friend.
Who wanted to take time off and all that, because I did the same thing. Back in 2013, I took actually 1 month off for me to do my backpacking travel tour in Europe with my husband. And the reason
Leave or
it's actually 1 month leave, because sometimes you accumulate leave that you can actually go off.
I see.
But I give notice. I'm actually a planner. Sometimes I can be quite obsessive in terms of like planning. So we planned that, and the reason why my husband and I, the reason why we wanted to do it during that year, because that's the only year that none of our kids are sitting for major exams. So we cannot miss that boat, because then after that it's like going to be like PT3 lah, SPM lah, A level lah, or all those kind of things. So, but when I came back at least, the kind of experience that you bring in makes you like a different person, particularly in diversity part.
Yeah.
Because when you go to other countries, you are then the minority. So how do you adapt? How do you also blend in? And how do you also understand people culture? What may be acceptable to you may not be acceptable to them, and vice versa. So because I think that was the spirit of why CIMB launched SRP, not just so much about for you to take time off, for you to take a break. It's also for you to start having meaningful and enriching experience apart from work. And at the same time, you're not going to be penalized. You don't lose your seniority. So just because, you're off for 2 years or 1 year, means that like when you enter, it's like you start fresh. No, you start, it's like a pause button. So the moment you enter, we play it again, and then you work as usual. So we've seen a lot of good success stories, and actually it also helped us in our retention. Because when you take a break and you come back fresher, and you come back like a different person. So it's not just about the further the study part, it's also about for you to have a meaningful, enriching experience. And we in CIB, we support that. Yeah.
That's
And
really
we
interesting.
we can tell the ending story because the person that I refer to, Liza, kenal dia pun lah kan. So when the person put the request, mula-mula kata nak 7 bulan kan, 6 bulan kan Liza kan. The person wanted to go travel around the world. So with heavy heart, of course, because I baru masuk talent corp masa tu kan, there's a lot I want to do for the country, and you have one of your key person kata, Sugunah, you know what, I want to go travel around the world. And this is something I've been thinking for the last few years, you know. So as a manager, of course, you want to support people for their best interest and purpose. Tapi dia minta 6 bulan. I was like, oh my God, 6 bulan ni macam mana ni? Okay lah, tak apalah, we support kan. So we made all the approval, support the person. Tapi after 3 months, the person came back. Because the person said, you know what, after traveling around the world, I realized how lucky and fortunate I am in this country and for the things that I have around me. And exactly. I want to come, and I want to come back earlier, and this is what I want to do. And I was so happy, you know, because you see, so this is some of the thing that helps, like Liza says, you know, for some people it's study, for some other people it's just bringing a new perspective for you, and companies have begun to realize that, and open up, you know, and that's for employees. So if you really talk about it, a lot of companies are into employee experiences, like what are the things we want to do to give the great moments, the best satisfaction. As long as these employees is with me, what is my obligation to take care of them and give them the best interest experiences in the moments that matters to them. I think a lot of companies are doing it. The banking industries are passionate about it. HSBC believes in it. And I'm sure Liza is also working on the same plan for people that we hire in our industry.
Oh, so this is really a new insight for me about the studies leave. Thank you for the person who asked these questions. And also now it looks like we are towards the end. Anything Miss Sugunah and also Miss Liza would like to wrap up before we end our session? Miss Sugunah, any highlights, remarks do you want to say?
No, just, yeah, sure. I mean, this thank you, first of all, thank you very much for having us in this conversation. It definitely has been a great moment for me. I just want to leave away with one message that, look, we are all together in this time, right? We are all facing it in very different way with this pandemic. We are all impacted, I must say, but all in a different way, right? And I would always encourage that there's always a silver lining amidst all this. Find what matters for you, find the purpose, find ways to make things happen. And there are resources around you. Like for me, as an example, just having this conversation today doesn't mean I'm done, right? I mean, you can always reach out to me separately, you know, and many students do, right? They reach out to practitioners separately and get their coaching and guidance in how they navigate through these changes. So I just want to leave that message that, you know, you have resources around you. Feel free to leverage us, and we will do our best to help you through these times. With that, Liza, over to you.
My team keep on reminding me, boss, tell them to apply for positions. So I must make sure I do that. They keep on like texting me, boss, make sure that you tell something, you know, about the vacancies that we have in CIMB. So I'm going to take this opportunity to get everyone to actually follow our LinkedIn page for the latest opportunities that we have to offer. So I think the second thing that I wanted to always remind and also at least impress upon the graduates, I think it's the same point that I've actually reiterated earlier. Do not sell yourself short. You know, sometimes as you progress in your life, not just about your career, then only you're beginning to understand what you have to offer and what value you can actually bring to the organization. And that may be not the value that you thought that you can actually bring in. I'm actually quite fortunate because along my career, I've actually had a lot of good coaches, good bosses. And one thing that we must always remember, you need to be in the job that excite you. At the same time also, you know, I always tell my team, one thing that I enjoy working in CIMB, sometimes you come to work and you feel stupid every day because there's always new things to learn. So that makes it very exciting rather than it's going to be like a very mundane, things that you can actually expect for things to happen, right? So always be open to this kind of environment and not just about working in CIMB, also in a broader view. I think both myself and Sugunah, as much as we represent our organization, we always have the best interest of our country at heart, particularly in encouraging young graduates to actually pursue their dreams and not to give up. So that would be my parting message.
Okay, this is really remarkable discussion, I can say that. So thank you so much for our panelists, Miss Sugunah and also Miss Liza, for being here with us and sharing their thoughts. And so thank you so much, audience. So don't forget, inshallah, we have another session this evening at 2. So stay tuned for another session. So thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Have a good afternoon.
Okay, thanks Nisa. Waalaikumsalam. Thanks everyone. Thanks
Thank
Sugunah.
you.
Okay, bye.